Support for Back to One comes from Primitive Grace Theater Ensemble's production of A City of Refuge, a powerful new play written and directed by Evan Kyler Lewison, inspired by the true events of the 1992 Washington Heights riots, at the Center at West Park in New York City until December 22nd. For more info and tickets, go to center@westpark.org.
Acting is the only job that I know in the art world that like fully requires the approval of someone else in order to do it at all. That's crazy. And like, and if that's all that you do, like if you are like, I'm an actor, I'm gonna be an actor, I'm gonna go like to LA and I'm gonna wait tables, I'm gonna be an actor, like, and you don't have any other creative output, like you're gonna go fucking crazy.
Filmmaker Magazine presents Back to One with Peter Rinaldi.
Miles Robbins is an actor. He sat down with me in New York City to talk about the work.
I heard that you saw a movie that you hated, and that is what made you think, you know what, I could do this.
Yeah. I mean, I was, so I love movies. I always have, but I creatively have always been more interested in making music. And I started a band when I was a little kid and like had a bunch of shitty bands through like high school. I went to college then for music production because I saw that everything was starting to be like DIY. And I was like, great, I want to know how to do this. So I studied that. I was like, art, I don't believe in art school. I don't believe that anyone can teach anyone how to be an artist or how to be creative or whatever. But like you can learn how to use a camera. You can learn how to use, you know, recording software. You can learn how to use microphones, right? So I studied recording, but then also I was at Brown, and they have this great like electronic music program. So I was in that, and then they also have a really cool documentary film program. So I started working with this professor there called Tony Cokes, who's awesome. And he was like a really great inspiration to me. He makes these kind of very high concept, often mostly text-based documentaries. I shouldn't say high concept, I just mean like heady, but he's really an academic, and in a way that I, don't always really relate to, but I really enjoyed his class, and I ended up becoming his teacher's assistant. And so I was like kind of working for the film program, like checking out cameras and stuff. And I was also making music, and I was making a documentary that was very inspired by Ron Frick. And I love his work a lot. I really like the documentary that like shows rather than tells or whatever. And so I was really interested in making a thing that was like film with music that would be beautiful, that my friends would compose, that I would work on, and that it would just be fast images. So I would use a DSLR to record for like a full, 20 minutes or whatever, and condense it in a few seconds, and try to kind of like find things there. And I was arranging it in these 4 frames. And it was this movie that I made that I was really, really proud of, and I was loving it, and I was just going to keep working on it. And after I got back from college, and I was still going to keep working on it, someone broke into my mom's house and stole my hard drives, my computer, all the shit that I was making this movie on.
Are you kidding me?
At a certain point,
This is like the nightmare.
And exactly, and it was, I had backups that they also stole.
Wow.
And so I lost all the footage that I had been shooting. At that point, I had been working as a DJ a little bit. I was DJing on weekends. I was working at a restaurant. I was bartending. I was doing like a couple odd jobs here and there. Playing shows with my band, but after that, they also stole my laptop, which I was like a laptop DJ, right? And because it's so easy. But when I had my laptop stolen, then had a gig that weekend and was like, shit, well, I guess they didn't steal any of my records. And I had been collecting records since I was like 13, 14 or whatever, never with the intention of like DJing with them. But like I had a bunch of great records, and I had a lot of, like Afrobeat records that I loved, and, some like kind of, pre-disco kind of funk stuff that I was really digging. And so I just became like a vinyl DJ, became like a real DJ all of a sudden, and just like fully ended up immersing myself in that world where like suddenly I was taking it a lot more seriously. I was buying records, I was going to record stores. I was like, oh shit, like, okay, I like this job. Did that job then for a while until I was able to afford basically to only work like 3 nights a week. And then I had like time. And I've always liked just making stuff. So I'm always kind of like interested to try a new kind of thing to make. I tried painting once and I was very bad at it. But what ultimately led to me acting was that, I went to see a movie that I really didn't like. And it was getting, accolades. And some of the performances were getting accolades. And I was just like... And it's nothing. I think that these actors also like have made plenty of other great movies. I just thought that this movie like wasn't good or interesting, and it was like I was like, fuck, like I want to make a movie again. Like I could do a good job at this. Like I have good taste. I think at least better. I don't know. I just was like, fuck, might as well try, because now I only have to work 3 days a week. And then that's kind of what inspired me to like try it. At first was kind of like, I don't know, fucking like, whatever. Like I want to make some money. Let's go. Let's do something. and then, I just kind of ended up being better at it than I thought I would be, and really loving the job. Like it's the best job. There's something so great about being on a set and drinking seltzer and working with people who all do different jobs. Yeah. Like, to be like, there's always a sound person and there's always a cinematographer. And like, it's great to be in that world, like where you're around both of those people. Like I love that about movies, that it's such a combination of different interests. And so I was like, fuck, I love doing this. And it kind of just fell into place from there.
And when you first said, okay, I can do this, did you take like an assessment of your innate skills? Like what made you think you can do that?
I think that I just wasn't like scared of it or something. I think that like I didn't think it mattered at all. Like I think that my advantage going into it was just like how many bad actors are there all over the place? Like who cares? They're making money. Like anyone can be anyone can be an actor. Like it is not a meritocracy. Like it is not at all. And so so maybe that attitude, like, I mean, I have noticed, I think that like a huge part of being able to perform well as an actor is just like being comfortable and not being nervous and not being like in your head too much about something, and like just kind of, because you're pretending to be just a person who's not thinking about the fact that they're acting, right? Like all we are all doing is acting. Yes. Because we're all just like pretending to not be monkeys. Yes. So like the only thing to do as an actor is like not act. Is to like, it's like the only thing to really do. So that's kind of part of why I also definitely don't believe in like acting school, except for that it's a place to practice. Yes. Because like any art school is a place to practice, and that's like the best thing it can be. Yes. But like when people talk about like techniques of how to access emotion, I think that's insane. Like I think that's like,
okay, wait, we have to
that's like sociopathic to me. Like I think that's like I'm sorry, you're like, you have like a strategy for how to access your emotion. Like that's terrifying. I don't want that at all.
Well, I think in relation to what you're saying, we have to talk about this movie, because you have to reach some emotions during this performance. I am so with you about this. Like if you have it, if you're able to do it, like do not go anywhere near any kind of training. Like you know, it could only make things worse. But what about when you are stuck? Like, the trained people have tools, or it seems, or they tell me.
I should say, by the way, But let me just quickly cut you off and just say that I did take a lesson from a guy in New York who's excellent, whose job is, what he mostly does is train theater actors how to prepare for film. And he has a very technical approach to basically understanding what your like body shape does to an image.
Yeah.
And that I think is like,
that helps.
Like I was talking about learning how to use microphones and cameras and stuff, like that is a totally valuable skill to learn.
It's almost like a tool. It's almost like like in the same way of learning a camera, you're learning your body.
It's totally technical and like, and that's like spot on. And that, but that's different than the emotions thing, you know?
Right.
That's totally, it's totally just about how to convey things with the frame, you know?
Yes.
But sorry, and you were saying I cut you off. Totally.
But let me say this in a different way. And if I took your advice right now and started acting, I would be horrifically bad. Okay, because I cannot access any of my emotions. I also think too much. So if you're saying not everybody maybe can just take your approach to non-training,
right?
You have a kernel of something. It might just be you not being scared. That might be 90% of what you're able to do. But I am scared. I'm scared out of my mind. Please don't encourage people to act.
I think less people should act. I think that less people should act, and that's fine. I think that anyone should act as much as they want to. But I definitely think that like trying to act, trying to be an actor or whatever,
just don't try.
Is something that like hurts a lot of people's lives and feelings, and like
you hit on
because it's a totally fucking brutal business that is only about getting lucky and people liking your haircut and like and being like okay to like keep going, like okay enough to like keep getting work or whatever. But like it's it is as a craft like a weird thing, and it doesn't I don't think work the way that like most people think it does. And so I mean, I hate going to LA, for instance, just because it makes me feel miserable, just because like I think the whole place is people like trying to like, I don't know, there's something about the energy that comes with like people who are always talking about their accomplishments to each other too. That like it's it's only that business and people are all trying to do the same thing. And so when someone like has some success next to you, like it can't lift you up because you're like competing with them or something. And so like it becomes this kind of desperate like thing that is about like, you're not like succeeding until you like get the part. And acting is the only job that I know in the art world that like fully requires the approval of someone else in order to do it at all. That's crazy.
That's true.
And like and if that's all that you do, like if you are like, I'm an actor, I'm going to be an actor, I'm going to go like to LA and I'm going to wait tables, I'm going to be an actor, like, and you don't have any other creative output, like you're going to go fucking crazy. Because first off, like acting is weird. Secondly, like, you won't be able to just do it unless somebody likes your haircut. So like it will really, when I say like I think less people should act, I'm joking, but I also think that like it shouldn't be ever, like if it's your full focus and that's the only thing that you're doing, it's gonna make it hard for you to do it because you're gonna be so in your head about like if I don't get this thing, then I mean, all the times that I've done the best on auditions or whatever is always when I'm kind of like, I don't really care. And so that comes, that enters into the whole like being afraid or whatever thing that, it's definitely by being comfortable or unintimidated that actors do a good job. And sometimes that's because they have like, I have been making music the whole time, so I don't really care that much if I'm not working because I can just be making a record. Or like someone is like fully full of themselves and like to the extent that they're so confident that they then like are pretty good at acting. I 100%
When I saw Blockers, which I wouldn't normally have seen, but because I was seeing a lot of movies that particular year due to MoviePass. So here I am in the theater with my wife, seeing a movie I would never have seen, and loving it and loving you. And thank you MoviePass for making me see movies I wouldn't normally see. And then, so when your name came up to possibly sit down with you, I was like, I like that guy. Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Right.
But then I see this movie, Daniel Isn't Real.
Right.
It's not necessarily my cup of tea, but I loved it. And then I was like, I almost felt like puffed up because I was like, I knew that kid had something. And here he is doing even more than I thought. Like, I was going to just sit down with you, talking about comedy, talk about like sensibility, which I still want to talk about. But here you are doing something really deep and lots of different things going on here, physically, emotionally, and then just acting work that needs to be done here. When you first read the script and knew that you had to do this kind of stuff in this movie, because of what you're telling us here, going on your instincts, knowing that not being scared is all part of it, but here you are having to reach some things. Were you worried at all about, like, okay, I'm stepping into another level here of what needs to be done? Do I have all the tools to be able to hit this?
I think that I didn't worry enough about it, not because of whether or not I'd be able to access those feelings, but I didn't know what it would do to me personally. Because your body doesn't know that it's fake. And if you spend every day clawing at your head in like deep psychological terror, screaming on the floor and shit, every day for a month, like it really fucked me up in a way that I wasn't prepared for. Wow. And I was having like fully blown, I mean, I've had anxiety, panic attacks and things before in my life, but I was starting to have them like very regularly, including on set one time. Which was brutal, but it made it in the movie. But yeah, no, I mean, like, basically, I don't believe in method acting. I think that method acting is something that, and I did not coin this was someone else's thing, but they said to me once that method acting is something that men do to make themselves feel better about doing a vulnerable act. Which I totally agree with, because acting is vulnerable, it's feminine, which I love, and we can talk about masculinity and femininity another time, or I can continue if you'd like, but, you know, basically I think that it's necessary for men to access femininity and for women to access masculinity, and become a whole person in that way. Experience the full duality of nature, man. But so I think that acting is a very vulnerable thing if you're doing it right. And in that vulnerability, if you're doing it right, it's something that you actually experience. You know, you actually experience those feelings, and you pull yourself in the headspace. When it comes to preparing for this kind of deep stuff, I think that it's kind of like improv or something, that you just kind of have to like let it come to you. You have to keep your hands open and be ready to grab it, and whatever it is that comes. And, you know, I improv a lot also, specifically like ad-libbing in everything that I do, to the point where, like, so, you know, it's annoying. Like, I'm sure that the certain directors I've worked with might be annoyed by how much I kind of like ad-lib. But it's kind of important for me to like always do that stuff. I think because of Tears in the Rain, like that Blade Runner speech is improvised.
Yeah.
Do you know that?
Yes.
Like, fuck. That's the whole movie. Like, that's the whole point of the movie.
I bet you there's so
many...
many...
And it's right there, and it's raining. And, like, and he was just like, oh, I felt like saying that. Like, yeah, like, you gotta, I think as an actor, you gotta try to open up to, you know, put something that just came to you on the spot out there, because it could be that. You can always edit it.
Yeah.
So, like, I think that that's kind of a big part of it for me, and there's a lot of stuff that happened in this movie that was improvised that kind of came out of it. Ultimately, like I am one of the most like romantic concepts that I believe in is the classical Greek genius, which is that it's like this ethereal thing that is other, that comes through people, that like when you have a stroke of genius, it's that this thing has entered you for a moment and then left. And that like that idea of like some kind of external like channeling, that like you're the prism for this creative energy or whatever, like I don't remember thinking of like all my favorite songs that I've ever written. I don't know how I thought of them. Like I don't know where that came from. I don't remember like conceptualizing it. It just kind of like happened. And so that's a huge part of acting too for me, I think, is just like being open to the idea that something might happen, that I don't have that much of a plan, that I'm not gonna like put everything into like this pen that I have this whole plan that me and this pen are gonna tell this whole story or whatever, like I've heard all kinds of crazy shit from actors, but like it's about kind of taking it on the fly, I think, and that's kind of how I think that I got to any of these difficult places. I also used a menthol blower, which helped me to cry.
Whoa.
Yeah. Because you can't do that every day. You can't cry every day.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And I think that, I'm happy with being open about that, because like as an actor, like you can't make your eyes well up. You can do it for that scene in that movie, but this movie, the whole movie, I'm devastated, and I'm like crawling on the fucking floor, and no way I could have done that like physically if I hadn't had like a little bit of movie magic by Leo, who's a great guy, who's my makeup artist, who occasionally would come and blow a little bit of menthol crystals in my eyes so that I'd tear up.
I think, thank you for saying this, because there's so many times when it's just like, if you're not getting there, and I'm supposed to be seeing tears, it's a problem for me as an audience member. I'm sorry. I don't, I have different feelings about how people get there and if they should get there, or maybe they shouldn't even try if they can't get there. But there should be tears if there's supposed to be tears, and if there's not, it's a problem.
Yeah.
I'm just sorry. So to do it artificial, like I'm starting to think like if James Dean is really coming back from the dead and is a supporting actor, well, let's not get mad about this. But I'm just saying, if that's happening, then do you really think that they're not going to artificially put tears in people, and we're never going to know it? We're never going to know it.
Right.
That it's
CG tears.
CG tears.
Because they've been doing like drops forever.
What do you mean, like?
They've been putting like little drops or doing the menthol blower or whatever. Like that's not, and I'm not like.
No, of course.
Most actors probably do it and don't admit to it, but like
I don't know why they don't do it more.
Yeah, no, I mean, like I think that one of the only pieces of acting advice that I've ever received that I've thought was really, really great was, I mean, I've received plenty of advice that I think is great. I don't know, I shouldn't preface it by saying that. But a piece that I liked a lot was that when it comes to crying scenes where you have to cry, the only thing to do is try not to cry. And that's like the best way to have a crying moment, because anyone who is crying is trying not to cry. No one's trying to cry ever. So like that, I think, is valuable to me. And there's plenty of tears in this movie that are real and that are part of that kind of thing. But sometimes, especially, when it's been a long fucking day, or it's just like, I have to take a shit or something, I don't feel like I'm like ready to cry. And I just like need to just kind of do my job. And I will, you can ask for the menthol blower, and then that thing makes it really easy to try not to cry, because all it's doing is making your eyes sting and feel like shit. Yeah. And then you're like, great, all I can do now is be me, be a human in the scene, and like try not to cry, because it's coming no matter what. So like, I think people shouldn't be so like precious about not using those things or whatever. Like, look at what else we're doing in the movie. Like, look at how much other crazy shit that we're like manufacturing. Like, the whole thing is magic, you know?
Right.
It's not a play.
Right.
It's like you're using the language of cinema. Why not blow some shit in your eyes?
We'll be right back after this. I'm putting together a very special episode of Back to One that goes behind the scenes of a new play that just opened in New York called A City of Refuge, written and directed by Evan Kyler Lewison, inspired by true events surrounding the 1992 Washington Heights riots. I got to watch 6 very talented actors bravely take on this intense material and mold it into a powerful experience. You're going to enjoy this episode, but you're really going to get a lot out of it if you happen to be in New York City and you can get to the limited run at the Center at West Park through December 22nd. For tickets and info, go to centeratwestpark.org.
I want to know your approach to comedy, you know, because I saw something in your performance in Blockers. You know, this is just this fun teen comedy or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
But there was something about it that the choices you were making. So I'm very cynical. I hate comedy. Most people don't do it right. Okay, when something's a little bit ahead of me in terms of choices,
Okay.
and that's what I was seeing in your performance.
What do you mean by that?
I don't know. It was new. It was a little new. It wasn't. You weren't doing. See, when the British Office came out, right? It was 2001, and I remember thinking like, this is new. But it was something that I was doing with my friends. It was this awkward comedy. Now awkward comedy is so old.
Yeah.
But people are still doing it. You know, they're doing this stale, awkward comedy.
Yeah.
I think your instinct is just like, you know what's stale. And you stay away from it in your choices.
Yeah, well, maybe being discerning, like you're saying. I mean, like, I think that being picky or discerning or whatever in your taste, it can really help you be a better artist of any kind.
Yes.
I think that, like, it definitely helps to, like, really, really overthink everything when you're creating something. Not when you're doing it, but when you're like conceptualizing it. And so when it comes to writing jokes or whatever, like I definitely wouldn't want to like overthink a joke while I was saying it, but to try to make the best version of it and really like care about it enough to, you know, I had a really bad band in high school that we made a record and I really hope no one listens to it. But when I wrote those songs, I would write a song and I'd be like, I have a song now, like that, cool, like let's record it. And that was it. And I didn't realize that like editing was possible. And so like editing, I think, is like a huge part of making things well. You know, to do something the best that it can be, whatever it is, like, comedy is everything, you know, in every genre. I mean, what's my comedic influence? Like, I love Tim and Eric. I love Eric Andre. I really like a lot of kind of absurdist, psychedelic, weird shit. I also like fart jokes, you know, I don't know, but like, I definitely think that,
never gets old.
That, yeah, I mean, the fart's the first joke. It's the first joke. It smells funny. There's a trumpet sound. And it was someone, who was it? Best joke. Best fucking joke. Definitely the first time someone laughed was a fart. Yeah. I'm like pretty confident of that. But yeah.
Right back in the cave.
Yeah, they're in the cave. They're like, is there a saber-toothed tiger around? Yeah. And then someone farts and then they laugh. And they're like, oh my God, I guess there's not any predators because they would have found us from the fart. You know, like... But yeah, no, and you know, I think that like absurdity is I mean, it's so absurd that we're in a building, let alone this building, let alone like all wearing clothes. Like it's
on an island.
you know, like on it's all absurd. So like absurdity is the best comedy for me. I mean, I don't know.
So look, what I'm gathering is that you got the antennas up for receiving on the set, in the moment. You're using improvisation also to get there and stuff. But what is the relationship that you need from the director when that is happening for you? Like, do you need somebody to just stay away from you so that it doesn't interfere with that, or how do they help you in that?
I definitely think that I don't think a director should try to help with emotion. You know, because I've heard of directors being like, look, like you look sad, but we need you to like be sadder. It's like a nightmare. Like that's the worst direction ever. Like to do that is, you know, sometimes I think it might help to explain the way that they see the significance of this moment, or like or remind an actor about like the part of the story that it might be. Like it's hard to keep track sometimes about the arc and remembering like that this had just happened, or like, look, my plan is to cut right to this, so like I want you to fully be where you were at this point, you know, like that kind of stuff is kind of helpful. But like ultimately I think that the director is there to, you know, shape the whole story. But when it comes to like getting there emotionally or whatever, I think that can be in like blocking. The director can help in like, look, no, I really want you to be in his face here. Mm-hmm. Like that kind of stuff helps. But when it's like, and think about your mom, like that, I don't want that stuff. Like I never want someone to like tell me what to feel. Yeah. I think that the director is also like an editor on the ground. You know, there's a lot that is, I really appreciate and respect the experience of working with a director who can be like, all right, now give me some of this kind of thing, or here's an idea, and just kind of go with it. And then like we do a take and they're like, cool, now get rid of that part of it, or this, you know, like to do that really works well for me, I think, to be, like edited as you go, but to be allowed to kind of find things on your own, and then the director kind of steers that, is like the way to go for me, at least. I know that there are directors out there who like have an idea and they want their actors to work a very certain way and they want to say exactly what's on the page, and they will never hire me. So that's fine. But like that's, you know, that's okay. Like I think that people work in different ways, and there's also actors who like who cannot improvise, or like hate the idea of you know, making up their own kind of take. And there's, you know, and like actors are just kind of dolls to be played with, so I get how there could be some like people with not a lot going on in there that were just like, what am I supposed to say? Like I don't understand, you know, like and that's fine. Like it's like I'm just a model who talks, I guess, right? Like that's all we are, right? But yeah.
Adam Egypt Mortimer, the director of Daniel Isn't Real, I reached out to him. I said, give me a quote about Miles.
Okay.
And he said, Miles has an amazing emotional intelligence and is fearless in his vulnerability. You love him the second he's on screen. He has so much life going on, which was crucial for this character. To see that spark of intelligence and excitement, even when things seem quite dark.
Wow, well that's so nice of him.
Is that something that you're even aware of? You're not cultivating this, what he just said. Your vulnerability is a part of you. Like this is you. Like you in your life, you are not afraid of your vulnerability.
Well,
is that right?
No, I mean I think it's a strength.
Yeah.
I think vulnerability is a strength. I think that I mean it's kind of part of the movie that like I think that too many young men think that vulnerability is a weakness.
Yeah.
Because it's like attached to physical weakness, like that in like the jungle or whatever. Yeah. And it's just, you know, it's not the world that we live in.
Yeah.
You know, emotional strength, it can lead to a much longer life than physical strength at this point.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, suicide is extremely prevalent with young men, And I think a part of that often has to do with being told to be a man and what that is wrapped up in, and that if you're not a man, you're not a real man with the, you got your big job and you got your, your house and or whatever and your car and your like hot babe of a girlfriend, man, like whatever. I don't know, that attitude about what it is to be a man has definitely contributed to a lot of anguish that has been, harmful to men, and to women. Because that's like, the people who hurt women the most is always men who are uncomfortable with their manhood, uncomfortable with being vulnerable, or not being able to be vulnerable and to understand their emotions and to embrace their emotions and to, embrace their femininity. Because, and I can talk about, like, I think that basically I do believe in a duality and in a certain kind of yin and yang, a binary that is like in like physically the structure of the universe. And I think that there are qualities in this world that like have a certain kind of balance. And I think that, it has the idea of femininity, masculinity is wrapped up in gender because, like, there are two parts of procreation. There are two like binary elements that create a new life in our species. Not in every species, but in our species. And like, it's just too easy to associate, to like wrap things up in a box and do that. It's just like, it's easier. Look, you're like trying to stay away from saber-toothed tigers and shit. Like, you're going to say like, okay, like everyone with that part, you guys do like the like wicker baskets, and like we'll go like the hunt because we have this thing. So we'll go like,
trying to stay alive.
Hunt. We'll go like, because it's just easier to do it that way. Or like, I mean, also like, I think a lot of patriarchy is wrapped up in the like convenience of the, women have to deal with fucking having a pregnant belly and shit. Like, it makes a lot more sense that you'd like not go running around through the woods during that time. So like, that's probably the origin of it. But then like it became a much, much bigger, deeper kind of thing that goes throughout society, that has been around forever. And a lot of it, I think goes back to like hunting societies, hunting-gatherers societies. But now we live in a world where that's not the case. A man's strength does not involve how many like tigers he can hunt at all. Like, we're so far away from that, and we still haven't recovered from it. We still haven't figured out how to be full people. Like we are so still ingrained in those roles that we haven't, figured out that it's a completely arbitrary distinction. And so men who think of physical power and hard power as like manhood, you can't blame them that much, because that's been there since we were, figuring out how to put plants in the ground. But the idea of soft power, that the power that comes with generosity and give and malleability and a kind of consideration, like, that's something that men haven't accepted enough. I imagine if we looked at hunter-gatherer society, I mean, we can't, it's too far in the past really to really understand what it was like. But like this, when the guys are going out and hunting boars or whatever, like, who do you think is like talking about stuff and thinking about things and like actually having any kind of complexity to like, any understanding of the world? Like, I mean, I think that that's where like that's why like those, which I believe are feminine quality, and I say feminine, but it doesn't mean female. It doesn't, right. It's a word that's associated with female, but that's false. It's just a word. I mean, all words are just metaphors. Like, that's you know, but that, you know, quality of introspection, of generosity with your emotions, of a kind of creativity, really. Creativity is a feminine quality. It is something that is about accepting and things as they come to you, and understanding things and considering things rather than like acting and striking on things. You know, like those are kind of, and to do something well requires both things, right? So like I imagine that that's really an essential part of what like the movie is trying to say too. You know, like I think that that's a huge part of what attracted me to the movie, is kind of the struggle in this young man to like understand and navigate how weird it is to be a human, you know, and to become an adult and to do all these things that, you know, he's coming out of this very difficult childhood, and it's a thing that you can either do with grace and femininity, or you can accept the like influence of a very toxic patriarchal society and like double down on hard power and conquest or whatever, and to make yourself feel like a man. And that's kind of what, you know, Daniel represents to me, is as this character that he is the voice in the head of the young man saying like, you will be complete when you get this girl's number, you know, when you do, like, because that's what a man is. And I just think that the movie, you know, shows how that's tragic, and that's a destructive force, and I'm really glad that could have been a part of this, and that, you know, I hope we succeeded in telling that story.
So what is your approach now to future work? Like, are people offering you things? Are you seeing things? Are you auditioning? Or are you being picky?
It's a bit of both. It's a bit of everything there. I definitely audition still. I am very picky. I think it helps to be picky for my personal life, because I don't just want to act. There's a lot of other things that I like doing, and I like making music, and I have a band, and I'm finishing a record right now. So I don't want to do something that takes me away from that is boring or stupid or that I wouldn't enjoy making. So I am picky, but I am auditioning, and I just kind of take it one day at a time and believe that like whatever's meant to be will be, and just like whenever I'm given an opportunity to do something, to take the work seriously. Like I try not to take myself seriously, but I try to take everything that I do seriously, because I'm so lucky to be alive in the first place, and extremely lucky to have like one of the best jobs in the world that a lot of people want to do. So I do my best to be grateful by doing my best job when I'm given those opportunities. And yeah, like, you know, even with auditions and stuff, like I, you know, just try to do as best I can to to understand the character, try my best, like really try to do something, even if it's like not what they're looking for, then, you know, I shouldn't be the person. Like, you know, it's kind of, there's plenty of 6-foot white guys who want to be actors, you know? So like, I don't, you know, if it's me, it's me. If it's not, it's fine. You know, that's kind of it.
Miles Robbins.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to meet you, man.
The pleasure was mine.
I'm a big fan of yours, you know, so.
I got to keep that in.
Back to One is a production of Filmmaker Magazine, which is a publication of IFP, the Independent Filmmaker Project. Listen to back episodes of this podcast at filmmakermagazine.com or wherever you get your podcasts.